Hey everybody, I hope you're staying warm on this lovely cold day. So this video I'm going to talk a little bit about the expectations for Article 1 of Project 1. So the basic expectations, 4 sources, at least 2 of which need to be primary, 500 words. Now the syllabus says 400, so if you do 400 you are okay, but I recommend 500 for this assignment. And it is always okay to go over the word count. I prefer you don't go under the word count. But if you end up finding that you love this topic and you are just in the zone, feel free to write additional words. And if you have enough extra words, you can apply those to future articles. So you'll notice that with this assignment, it has this point on there about rhetorical analysis. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a moment after I tell you about how Article 1 fits within the larger Project 1 that we are working on. So with Project 1, the intention of this project, as I mentioned in class, is to give you a sense of what types of topics you are most interested in writing. And the key to this is research. And so Project 1 is designed to build your research skills so that when we get to Project 2 in that second half of the semester, you'll have an easier time finding the best sources for your topic. So with the articles, first one, Article 1, we're looking at primary sources. These are sources specifically from your topic. So either information provided by a person who is directly involved in your topic, or information from a document that is directly used by individuals in your topic. And these sources are direct evidence of things happening in your topic. All right, so they're not externally reported by like someone else who's not part of that topic. The Article 2 is going to continue looking at primary sources, but delving deeper into multimodality. So looking at sources that are more than just words, more than just text on a page. So for example, looking at videos or advertisements, billboards, photographs, maps even, looking at things that are still coming directly from your topic. So for example, a recorded interview, but in this case, making sure that you are getting some familiarity with how to find sources that are more than just words on a page. Now, with Articles 3 and 4, we're going to be going into differentiating secondary and scholarly sources. So still using primary sources for those articles, but expanding the research scope, especially looking for the more academic type sources. Sources that will largely be words on a page, but that are more thoroughly researched, and so they are bringing in larger contexts of information. Now, with these articles, something I want to emphasize is that I am not looking for perfection, especially not at this stage. Most important things for this class, as long as you're hitting the sources, as long as you're hitting the right type of sources, and as long as you're hitting that word count, you are almost guaranteed a B on an assignment. So pay attention to those 3 things. Bear in mind, I don't take off points for grammar or spelling or things like that. And I encourage you to not use Grammarly, even though Grammarly is very helpful. I think it kind of masks the writing skills that you already have. And also it can create false AI positives. All right, so Grammarly technically is an AI system, but it does not work like ChatGPT. All right, it is okay to use. I just don't encourage it because I want to see what your actual voice is like, what your actual writing is like. So as long as you are doing that writing, as long as you are getting those sources, as long as you are hitting that word count, you're going to be in good shape for this class. So let's talk a little bit more about Article 1 itself. What are the primary sources? So for example, I mentioned with the multimodal sources that, video interviews and things like that, feel free to use those for Article 1. All right. Any primary source is fair game, whether it's words on a page, whether it's a video, whether it's a painting, whether it's an interview. Any primary source at all is open for you to use. With Article 1, I'm looking for you to find at least 2 primary sources and at least 4 sources total. It is completely okay to have more than 2 primaries, and is totally okay to have more than 4 sources. But I do recommend finding 2 solid primary sources that you want to analyze and then zeroing in your research on those 2 sources. If you try to focus in on too many sources, you can get a bit distracted. And so with this, find those 2 you want to focus on, use the other 2 to support your investigation of the main 2. So with these main 2 sources, the goal is to do a rhetorical analysis. Now, I have an example of the rhetorical analysis approach in Canvas. And something I want to emphasize here is that rhetorical analysis may be a bit different from writing you've done in the past. If you find rhetorical analysis confusing, it is completely okay to focus on your topic by itself. All right. Now, you won't get quite as high a grade if you don't do the rhetorical analysis part, but you'll still be fine grade-wise. All right. The rhetorical analysis part is not a huge part of the grade. It is one of those skills I want you to start developing, but this assignment is not designed and not intended to teach you all you need to know about rhetorical analysis. All right. Rhetorical analysis is a complex skill that we will be talking about quite a bit this first half of the semester. So if you don't know how to do it and you don't feel comfortable doing it, honestly, I would recommend ignoring it completely. That might sound strange coming from a teacher. You don't expect teachers to say, hey, you can ignore my directions. But like I said, the most important things, that research, finding those sources, hitting that word count. If you were doing those things, you can worry about rhetorical analysis later. So let's talk about what is this rhetorical analysis. So when we talk about rhetoric simply means communication. Some folks confuse rhetoric with persuasion. With persuasion, we're trying to convince someone to do something. We're trying to sway an opinion. Rhetoric often does this, but not necessarily intentionally. So if you are communicating in some way, you are using rhetoric, and you may be persuading someone of something, even though you don't want to. All right, so for example, let's say that you are going in to buy a car. All right, now car buying is high stakes, a lot of money, and there is a whole ton of communication that happens. All right, from the moment you drive by a car dealership, what do you see? You see a giant sign in the air over that dealership. That's rhetorical. You see a billboard advertising their car. That's rhetoric. You hear the ad on the radio. That's rhetoric. You see those car buying commercials where you have these cars zipping around these tracks, doing the kinds of driving that you would never be allowed to do on the interstate without being pulled over. That is rhetoric. That is convincing you that this is the car you need to buy. And then you'll notice they always have the little legal disclaimer saying professional driver on a controlled course. Again, that's rhetoric. It's communication. It's so that you don't sue them if you are crazy enough to do the kind of driving they are showing you their car doing. Now, you go into the car dealership. You tell the dealer, hey, I am interested in this kind of car. If you are smart, then you don't show too much interest in the car, because then the dealer will keep the price high. But on the flip side, you have to communicate some interest in order to, you're going to go on a test drive. You want to see how this car works. And during this process, the dealer will tell you all the good things about this car. Now, in this process, the dealer is trying to persuade you to buy a car. So all the things they're saying are meant to be persuasive. All right, so they'll say things like, this car has this feature, this car has this feature. Now, along with that, there are the kind of the accidental forms of rhetoric that will come out here, and often this will differentiate ethical car dealers from unethical ones. All right, there are some car dealers, I was lucky enough when I got my car, the dealer was pretty straightforward, and they said that the price of my car was low because they wanted that low price to advertise so they could bring in other customers. And so my car, I couldn't really negotiate a lower price because they had already marked it down as far as possible, because rhetorically they wanted to publish that price. And I did appreciate them actually telling me this. It kind of showed that they were a bit more open than some dealers would be. On the flip side, you have car dealers who won't tell you everything. And when you notice they're not telling you everything, that communicates to you that, hey, this deal is not as good as it looks. Okay, so for example, used car dealers often get a very bad reputation. And not all of them deserve it, but the reason for this is because they will have to say things to convince someone to purchase a car that probably is not perfect. All right, so for example, my car right now, it has a battery drain. So during the winters, doesn't really start on its own. It's in the shop again today for this. If I wanted to trade in that car, then the dealer would try to sell it to someone else. And if it's a reputable dealer, they would say, hey, this car has a battery drain. When it's cold and rainy, the car will need a jump start. If it's an unethical dealer, they're going to sell this car and then let the buyer figure out the problem. And so that withholding of information is rhetoric, right? I'm not trying to persuade you by telling you this car is got a battery problem. That would not be persuasive. But withholding that information is persuasive, right? So this is the thing with rhetoric that gets a little bit tricky. Everything you do, everything you say, these hand gestures that I'm using, they communicate things. They draw in attention. They get people to think and believe certain things. So when you do a rhetorical analysis, what you're going to be doing is looking at those two primary sources and talking about what are they communicating, why are they communicating it, how are they communicating it. All right. So for example, if we continue with the car dealer example, I might talk about a TV ad, and I might say, all right, in this ad, we see this car zipping through this course. All right, why is it zipping through a course? Because it's a sports car, and they want to highlight that it has speed, it has handling. Some of those, they'll show the cars going around these cones, going because they really want to highlight that this is the car to be sporty on the road. And rhetorically, what they are trying to do is convince you that by purchasing this car, you will be a sporty individual. Okay. Now, again, as I mentioned, it's got that little disclaimer, professional driver on an enclosed course. And in my rhetorical analysis, I would talk about how this is a legal disclaimer. They are trying to avoid lawsuits, but they don't want to distract you from this idea that you are a sporty person. And so that's why they have it in small text. Right. Now, at the end of the advertisement, you'll notice that they also go over the, financing and payment options and things like that. Again, legal reasons. But something I want you to know is that during the first part of the commercial, they have this very professional voice talking about, this car will do this, and this car will do this, and these are the features you can expect. And then when they get to the end part, They zip through that as fast as possible. All right, 60% APR, 300 down, blah, 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 blah. All right, because they want you to linger on how cool this car looks. And by the time they get to the end, they really don't want you thinking about how much it's going to cost. They don't want you thinking about how much it's going to set you back financially to purchase this car at the rates that they are proposing. And that's not an ethics thing. Any car you buy is going to be expensive. Any car you buy is going to set you back financially. And car dealers can't make a profit if all of their customers are so worried about saving money that they don't buy cars. So that rhetorical analysis that I just did breaks down, what are they saying? They're saying buy this car. Why are they saying it? Well, they need to make money. How are they doing it? They've got this, this track showing off the car. They've got this professional voice. But at the same time, they're also speeding through the legal stuff so that you don't put as much attention, as much focus on these legal reasons why purchasing this car will not be as cool as the rest of the ad seems to imply. All right. With this example, there'd be a couple other directions I might go with this. I might, for my second primary source, I might want to do another car ad. Maybe instead of looking at a sports car, I might look at an SUV and talk about the differences in those ads. SUVs, they typically show them doing off-road stuff or taking people camping, and they'll have like families with their dogs out at the beach and then driving across tundra to go live in an igloo for 3 weeks. Again, trying to sell this impression of the person you want to be, and trying to give this impression that by buying this car, you will become the person you want to be. Whereas the reality is, I could have driven my old Volkswagen to any of those places. Now, on the flip side, if I wanted to do a different aspect of comparison, I could take my original car ad and then talk about, what is the experience of going to a dealer? And if you use like your own personal experience, unfortunately, that would not count as an outside source. All right, so you do need to use outside sources. But if there was a YouTuber who talked about buying a car, you could use that person as a primary source. If you have a friend who bought a car recently, you could interview them as a primary source. If you happen to know a car dealer, you could interview your car dealer, be like, hey, what do you do when you're selling a car? How do you convince people to, sign up for this car loan? All right. On the flip side, you might decide to look at a car website. You could look at the dealer's website and see how they lay out the cars, how they do the photos, where do they place the prices in relation to the photos? What does this how do they use MSRP in promoting affordable prices? How do they talk about like $1,000 off? Things like that. Or you could look at a website like kellybluebook.com, or look at carfax.com, and you could talk about how do these websites help people identify specific vehicles, the values and past repair histories and things like that. How are these websites showing user comments? Are they going by what mechanics have written? What are they laying out? Why are they laying it out that way? All right. So, as I hope this video has shown you, Article 1 has a lot of possibilities, and I hope this video has given you a better sense of how to do a rhetorical analysis and how to approach this article. But again, if the rhetorical analysis part is really confusing, focus on the research, focus on the word count, and you'll be fine. So, as always, please feel free to let me know in case of any questions. You can email me or text me using my contact info in Canvas or the syllabus, and I will talk to you guys later.